What is up, you guys? Matt McKeever here, and so myself and Jeff Weibel jumped in the car, took about the 3.5 hour drive to Owen Sound to meet up with Jon Alicia and just find out what's going on in Owen Sound. They were amazing hosts. They showed us around. We saw a ton of different things going on in Owen Sound. Got to check out a few of their active projects, as well as just drove by a few of their properties that they've invested in the past. As well, we got a real crash course on what's going on in Owen Sound. Met a few characters as well, so it's good to know there's not just characters in London, Ontario. But otherwise, I was really taken aback by just how beautiful and historic the city was. It felt like at times we were in just different pockets of London, Ontario, and Jeff and myself were able to quickly be able to kind of adapt to that market. And they just did a fantastic job of breaking things down for us. We've done a whole series of videos with them, so you guys do not want to miss these videos. They're going to talk to us about all sorts of things, landlord-tenant board issues. They're going to share with us their investment strategies in Owen Sound. Alicia's going to give us some realtor tips on Jeff Weibel's channel. And we're trying to reach out to more local landlords. That's the whole goal of this trip. And the idea behind it is we want to showcase you guys. So if you want to be on my channel, if you want to be on Jeff Weibel's channel, all you need to do is reach out to me. Leave a comment on this video or slide into my DMs on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to showcase what you're doing in Southwestern Ontario, or realistically, give us an excuse to travel to wherever in the world you live. We'd love to just document more real people that are taking real action and getting real results.
Hello, my name is John Kepler.
And I'm Alicia Gillespie.
We are real estate investors here in Owen Sound. Owen Sound is a community of approximately 22,000 people within city limits, though in the larger area it's about 100,000. So it's one of the smaller communities in Ontario.
Yeah, and it has seen a lot of influx from GTA buyers because the average sale price of a home is about $348,000. So it's still very affordable compared to anything in the GTA.
So a lot of people in Toronto are selling their houses. They're moving up here to retire, live maybe a more relaxed life, but their dollars go a lot farther. So they can buy a much larger cottage here, sometimes for cash, and then still have enough money left over from their Toronto sale to finance their retirement. Also, it's one of the few areas in Ontario that still have excellent cap rates. So we're full-time multifamily investors, and the cap rates here are still 7, 8, 9, possibly 10. We don't have the Toronto 5 caps, 4 caps, 3 caps. And so you can still buy properties that cash flow. You can still buy properties with less than ideal financing and get cash flow.
Yeah, we've actually been able to do a lot of our deals with creative financing and vendor takebacks. And that's only possible because Owen Sound's a small community, it's tight-knit, and we've grown up here and we've built these relationships, but a lot of vendors are willing to do creative financing. You just have to know how to approach it.
Back in 2010, we bought our first purpose-built multifamily property. Alicia and I wanted to do it for years, but we didn't have the cash when we started. And over a couple of years, we saved $30,000. And when we bought our first, again, purpose-built multifamily, the vendor loaned us $90,000 to help with the down payment. It's just not something that you hear about in many other markets, and certainly not in very busy markets such as Toronto, Hamilton.
And on top of that, we were very young, like we were in our early 20s. I mean, not many people would take a chance on someone that's in their early 20s that hasn't, proven themselves yet.
We put that deal together when we were 24 years old, and he loaned us the cash up front. We took his $90,000 bank draft and took it from the bank with him standing right there, brought it over to our lawyer's office. It felt pretty serious at the time. It was a little intimidating, but he had faith in us and he took a bit of a risk, and it worked out. The first time we did that deal, not the first time we did that deal, but I guess when we did that first deal, we thought, this is excellent, this is luck, we're just going to take this single opportunity and ride it. And I didn't think we'd be able to do it again. And then after that, we did it again and again. The next property that we bought, we thought, well, it's a smaller property, we can't ask for $90,000, so we'll ask for $30,000. And they countered. Normally when you put an offer in to buy a property, someone will say, give us more money, sell it to us for more money, you should pay more. And instead of him saying you should pay more, he said you should borrow more. So we asked for $30,000 as a vendor take back. He said, no, take $50,000. So we borrowed $50,000.
Yeah, and this is how we were able to creatively get into our properties and to expand. Then it also helped that Owen Sound so small that we developed relationships with almost everyone that owned multifamily, as well as really good lawyers. We know the fire inspectors very well, the appraisers, so that's really helped as well.
In this town, there aren't a lot of people who are anonymous once you learn the business and you learn your way around. So it's really nice that you can build these relationships and then work with the same people over and over. So I've heard in other markets that sometimes you never know what you're going to get. Every appraisal is a new strange appraiser. Maybe you get unlucky, maybe they're in a bad mood. And so as Alicia said, in this town, we know who we work with. We work with the same people every single time. And I think it's common knowledge that one of the biggest factors for real estate success is to build a team. Everyone says build a team, but in our community, you're able to build a team that's more close-knit than normal, and a team that includes team members that you really couldn't include in other markets. You know, one would never normally say, I build my team by working closely with the fire inspector, or you're talking regularly to the fire inspector. When people say teams, they usually mean lawyers, accountants, property managers, contractors, and probably nobody else. But it's the additional level of a relationship that we're able to build in this town that just makes things more predictable, and frankly allows us to duplicate our system, allows us to keep building over and over and over, so that as soon as we do one deal, we're on to the next deal, using the same people, doing it the same way, and basically hitting the same numbers.
Yeah, and again, just because it's such a small, tight-knit community and we've built these relationships, we haven't really ever had to look for deals. Like, every time we're kind of getting antsy and we want to buy something else, people just come to us. Like right now, we have probably 4 or 5 in our back pocket that we're thinking about, and it just keeps happening. So that's also a good reason to stick to where we're doing. We've considered investing in other markets, and that might be something we do in the future, but for now we're really happy with Owen Sound, what we've been able to accomplish.
And even beyond your own network of experts, there's a lot to be said for going out and doing extra networking. Getting to know Matt McKeever and Jeff Weibo has been a really good experience, and it's helped us in ways that we wouldn't expect. Their market is a little bit of a distance away from ours, and so we thought, well, they don't buy buildings in the same town as we do. Perhaps that reduces the opportunity. But Matt McKeever's a popular guy, and we had a local investor in town who knocked on my door and said, "Hi, you don't know me, but I watch Matt McKeever. Let's have a chat." So it's amazing how that stuff happens. Again, it's 2018. We're all networking and we're all so much more connected than we used to be. So we're getting leads from surprising sources that are still working very well for us, including from YouTube, I suppose.
Yeah, networking's key. I mean, we've got to start networking a little bit more in our area, but going to London, going to the GTA, going to other places has really helped immensely. And we've started working with other investors that are coming up to this area and figuring out what we're about.
Nat asked us to talk about our first real estate deal. The first deal we did was for a single family home that we bought back in 2007. We paid $140,000 for it at the time, and it was a large 4-bedroom semi-detached house, and we still own it today. When we bought it, my goal was to live in a larger house than my friends. I wanted a lot of square footage, and I thought it would be great. Then when I moved in, I realized it was quiet, it was rather wasteful. Plants died in certain rooms because I didn't go to those rooms to water them. And it was just a poor financial decision. At some point it did start to hurt. You know, you lose money the first month and it doesn't seem like that big a deal. But after several months of it, or I think it was over a year, it needed to change. So we house hacked it. I got a couple of roommates. It worked very well because it was a large house and everybody had their privacy. And they paid for all of the mortgage. Some people want half the mortgage covered or they want their payments reduced. They paid for all of it. I paid for some utilities, and that was basically the deal. They covered it all.
Yeah, and not to say that that was easy. We definitely went through quite a few roommates and had to kick out some of them. But that's the best part about house hacking. If you're owner occupant, you don't have to worry about the RTA or anything. So if it doesn't work out, you just tell them to leave. So we did have to get rid of some of them, but then we also had some very long-term ones. Like our longest term was with us for, I think, 7 years. And he actually moved from our first house to the house that we're in now. And we don't have him anymore. He moved on, but that worked out really well for us. And even though we gave up a little bit of privacy, it paid our whole mortgage, and it just gave us the, more freedom and more money to save for down payments and for getting into our first real estate property.
Ultimately, we wouldn't have been able to grow in the rest of our business unless we did start by house hacking. In terms of our first purpose-built rental property, we bought a building with 6 apartments and a store back in 2010 for $355,000. At the time, it's hard to believe it now, but at the time it was an 11 cap. There was a commercial component, so you need to get paid on the commercial, and commercial is always a bit of a risk. But there was an excellent tenant, and they've now been there for 8 years. They never moved out.
And we knew they had a really strong covenant. It's a very specialty store, and we've been in there before we even bought it. And people from all over Ontario actually come up to this store. So we knew it was a good risk.
I like that store because it's a little higher end. Again, it's a specialty store. There was no fear of Walmart coming in and wiping them out. Their customers really had nowhere else to go, but the customers also preferred them. They built relationships, and they just did an excellent job retaining their customer base. So we saw that all quite quickly when the building was still for sale. However, because there was a commercial component, that means you need 35% down. The bank will only do 65% loan to value. So that's a lot of money. That was about $120,000 on the deal. And we certainly didn't have it. Because of house hacking and because of some saving, we were able to come up with $30,000 of our own, but there was still $90,000 remaining. And we took a bit of a risk. We asked for a vendor take-back mortgage. We asked the vendor to loan us $90,000. Frankly, it had to be ahead of closing. We needed the money for the down payment. We had to pay him back. So he took a risk on us and loaned us $90,000 up front. It allowed us to close. We put our 35% down, and everyone was satisfied. That was our first deal.
Yeah, and we still have that deal today. It's one of our best properties, and it's fully rented. We haven't had too many headaches there.
We reappraised it shortly after we bought it, perhaps just a year or two, for $100,000 more than we paid. It's tough to say what the value is today, perhaps in the $550,000 range or so. So we made $100,000 rather quickly, and probably another $100,000 the years after that. And of course, the cash flow has increased predictably. The vendor who sold us the property, they were wise enough to build an automatic increase into the commercial lease. So that's nice. Every year, the lease goes up just a little bit. And it's reasonable, but it's automatic. So you never have an unfortunate situation where a commercial tenant is paying below market rent. It automatically improves over time.
Which is honestly the best way to do it, especially in a small community like Owen Sound, because we know other landlords where they haven't put that in, and then they go to the commercial tenant and say, by the way, here's your 20% increase.
Yes.
Then they leave. So
Yes.
You have to be very careful with that.
Some other landlords do one-time increases on the commercial every 3 years or every 5 years. And as Alicia said, it's just not predictable for the tenant.
Yeah.
But it was a good deal. The vendor, they were thinking ahead, and they knew what we would want. They knew how to set things up to sell it just right. And of course they were accommodating. They gave us that vendor take back, right? So they knew what we needed to succeed. And I think that's actually a big part of getting a good deal done. Maybe a deal that you think is a little bit beyond what you're capable of, or beyond what you think you can achieve for your next deal. Just find a vendor, and I know it's not easy, but find a seller who understands your objective. Find someone who has a bit more of a business mind, and rather than buying a building from perhaps what you could call an amateur investor who's just trying to get the highest number of dollars and they don't really care about you, find someone who appreciates that it needs to be a win-win, and just work with them. Go have some back and forth, and ultimately decide how it can work for everybody. because that building has worked very well for us. We still remain in contact with the agent who sold us the building, and it continues to work well. Everyone's happy 8 years later. So I think that's a good general overview of our market, how we do what we do, perhaps the advantages that exist in our market that we're able to take advantage of, that allow us to grow when it would be perhaps a little more difficult for us to get the same level of growth in other communities.
All right, well, if you want to follow us on Instagram, mine is aliciagillespie.os.
And I'm Jon Kepler, JONKEPLER. So, thanks for watching, and
Thanks,
cut.